What's a weird little law rule your younger self made up that you still follow for no good reason? Story 1. The last bite of food has to be the perfect combination of all the ingredients. This is most important for pizza. We'll eat the crust second to last and move toppings around to create a perfect last bite, and salads. Wraps are a huge pain because without planning, I end on the butt of the wrap with just some lettuce and watery mayo folded in it. Unacceptable. Story 2. If a loved one goes in the hospital, they get a stuffed animal. This comes from a sister whose daughter was in the NICU neonatal intensive care unit when she was born, and the number of children who had no loved ones to care broke my heart, so that Christmas every single baby in the NICU got a stuffed animal. Since then it's been known as my law. I've bought a lot of stuffed animals in the last 35 years. I still have the one I got for my father the last time he was in the hospital, the visit he never came home from. Story 3. When traveling, I never eat at a restaurant that can be found in my hometown. Always go local. Edit guys. Obviously going to a McDonald's in India or China counts as go local because their menu is different than here. I just meant I'm not going to travel from the US to Italy or Turkey and get a Whopper or go to Denny's. I also do this when traveling in between states, or even in cities outside my normal drive. Story 4. I wish I still followed this one. When I was younger I had a rule that any time I entered my bedroom I would do 20 push-ups. Some days I would do over 100, other days I just did 40, but at least I was going up the stairs and doing a few push-ups. Story 5. If there are two switches that control a light, there must be a designated default switch. The switch that always must truly reflect the status of the light. Up is on, down is off. I will never use the second switch because that would make the default switch wrong. If my kids use the second switch I have to go back and make it right. Story 6. Future me. No matter what decision I am faced with in the moment, I do the extra work for future me. I always forget about it, then someday in the future, am involved in something similar, I go look to get the task done, and there are all my tools, set up perfectly by past me. I love it. Edited to add a real idea to this notion today. Do you think you should consider your significant other as future me, instead of yourself, to be the best past spouse? Story 7. In store shopping, I never pick the first item available. I always pick one from the back, if that makes sense. I just figure that it's maybe fresher or less touched. Story 8. Always keep a light on so I can find my way home. It was in a novel I read a long time ago. The tradition was that if a spirit was killed wrongly, by keeping a light on in the home, the spirit could at least find its way back home and find peace. So I always have at least a single light on in the house. 247. Story 9. If I wake up in the middle of the night to pee, get water, etc., I will not look at the time because I'll get anxious and have issues going back to sleep. I don't open my eyes when going to sleep after I yawn the first time. It's fairly obvious I have long-term issues with getting enough sleep. Story 10 years ago, a little 4-year-old me was told that I swam like a fish and I made the decision that all fish were my family and I couldn't eat my family. To this day I still don't eat fish XD. Story 11. When I was a kid, I made this weird rule that I'd never step on cracks in the sidewalk if I was wearing new shoes. Totally made up the idea that it would waste the look of new footwear. Embarrassingly, I still catch myself doing this little sidewalk dance when I'm wearing brand new kicks, even though I know it's completely ridiculous. Story 12. Not a rule I made up, but my parents did. Try at least 3 bites of something before you decide you don't like it. I credit this with helping me come to terms with different food textures and flavors, and for getting me to eat my veggies. I still may not like cauliflower, but I'll eat some anyway to maybe continue training my palate or trick it into liking it. So far it hasn't worked. Story 13. Can never have too many pens or pencils. In middle school through college, I would keep a wad of them in my pocket because there was always someone who needed one and I'd pull one out of my pocket. Even now I probably have enough pens and pencils to last me 5 years or more. Story 14. If I step on a crack with one foot, my other foot has to also step on a crack. One foot cannot have more cracks than the other. This gets complicated when walking on tile or brick. Story 15. If I found my mind wandering and thinking about something random, I'd try and trace my thought process back to how I got there. It took me till I was an adult to get it, but I think I was coming up with ways to try and manage my undiagnosed ADHD and potential autism. It helped me a lot when trying to study or when in class when growing up. Story 16. I always say thank you to machines if they're doing a task, like when the printer prints, or my computer downloads a game, or when we got my car unstuck from the ice, or when I ask Google a question. Logically, I know they aren't sapient, but better to err on the sake of caution. Wouldn't want to hurt their feelings. Story 17. Whenever it snows, you have to taste the snow. Either catch a snowflake on your tongue or grab a little fresh powder off the top of a railing or fence post or something. Story 18. Whenever I'm walking through a space, every corner shoots out a laser beam. I either can't step on a laser beam, or I have to step on one with every step depending on my mood. Story 19. I never wish death on anybody. I had a hard time dealing with my grandmother dying, and death impacts more than whoever you wish it on. That being said, there are some people who are having such a negative impact on the world that them no longer being here would be a positive for so many people it's hard not to. I still believe it's wrong. Story 20. Don't express anger aggressively to anyone with more power than you unless absolutely necessary to protect yourself. I've mastered the art of subtly instructing people that they are and how to fix it. It's still useful. People may not care if you get angry at their behavior. If they think that they themselves might have been increases the likelihood you'll get what you want. Story 21. Probably more of a habit, but always have some blanket wrapped around my upper body when sleeping. I randomly decided to do it one night when I was 5, and I've been doing it every night since, even during hot summer nights. I need something wrapped around my shoulders head, otherwise I can't sleep unless truly exhausted. Story 22. I have to make sure my 2 teddy bears I've had since the day I was born are on my side of the bed. I'm 41. My sister does the same with her toy from birth. Story 23. Pray for roadkill. I'm agnostic, but whenever I see something dead by the side of the road, I say a quick prayer for peace for them and their distraught owners. It's habitual at this point, but it's silent and in my head and hurts nothing, maybe even does some good. Story 24. No purple eyeshadow. Teenage me was wearing purple eyeshadow the day my first boyfriend broke up with me. I just can't bring myself to wear it again. I'm convinced it's bad luck. Story 25. I read as a kid that credit is a tax on fools. More than anything it's manifested as a self-inflicted imposed check mechanism. See something, want the thing, save for thing. Decide I don't need said thing savings. Story 26. I'm out of toilet paper if there's less than a dozen rolls left. Took out a friend's house and they didn't have any TP, had to wipe my with a paper towel. I vowed I'd never run out of TP again. I even keep a couple rolls on my desk at work. It paid off during that 2020 TP shortage. Stores were out of stock, but I never ran out. I already had a 6 to 8 month supply, LMAO. Story 27. I avoid butter unless I am baking and it is absolutely essential. When I was young, my parents got divorced, and my mother got involved with a corpulent, profanity-spewing redneck who slathered enormous amounts of butter on everything. He'd eat about 2 sticks of butter a day. The very first time I encountered this person, I had silently vowed to myself I will not end up like that. Story 28. If I am at a store for non-essential goods, e.g. clothing, tchotchkes, or trinkets that I could absolutely live without, I'll only go up to the register to make the purchase if I can find 2 items in the store, 2 of the same item or 2 different items that I want to buy. If I only find 1 item I like, I'll put that item back on the shelf. I think I picked up the habit years ago as a young adult from my local TJ Maxx because the checkout line can get outrageously long. Buying 2 items would make it worth waiting in line, but only buying 1 item made it such that it wasn't worth the wait. Now I just apply that rule naturally when on trips or out locally going window wishing. Story 29. Foods on my plate cannot touch each other, unless they are meant to touch each other. Like I can dip my garlic bread in the marinara, but you people who mix corn into your mashed potatoes. Story 30. This may sound stupid and I've been mocked before, but TBHC, if my dogs take a disliking to a person, chances are there's a good reason behind it. I trust my dogs more than most humans. Story 31. I don't care which city I'm in or how safe I feel. Being born and raised in Houston taught me to never leave anything valuable in your car, even if you are just running into the store for 5 minutes. Story 32. I put on 1 sock and 1 shoe at a time, then I do the other foot. It's because in an escape attempt I'd rather have 1 good foot than 2 bad feet. Story 33. I count the amount of strokes on each section of my teeth as I'm brushing them. I go 8 up and down motions per section. Unless my teeth feel really gritty, can't stop, won't stop. Also, if I buy a big bag of chips and eat all of them in one sitting, save for a handful at the bottom of the bag, then I practice self-control. Story 34. Being secretive about my bank card's PIN is useless. If somebody was reading my mind, I never believed in mind reading, nor do I now. But this thought just randomly popped into my head one day when I was withdrawing from an ATM with my new bank card. So just for shits and giggles, I started thinking of my old card's PIN when entering my new ones. It has been almost 20 years since and I'm still doing it to this day. It's such a habit that I only enter my number by muscle memory alone. If you were to ask me my current PIN, I would actually have to think really hard about it for a moment before being able to answer correctly. Story 35. I put clothing on in priority order if there was an emergency requiring immediate exit. Example, underwear first because I can cover my chest easier, then bra so at least my intimates are covered, then pants because it's easier to run, then shirt, I clearly have anxiety. Story 36. If I'm gonna have a pajama day around the house, I change out of my pajamas I slept in into different ones. I'll rewear them, but there'll be a pair of daytime pajamas and nighttime pajamas. Story 37. I always finish my water no matter what. When I was a child, I was deeply impacted by learning there are people who either don't have water or very tainted water, so I made a promise to myself that I would never waste water again. I still have that same mindset, but it's mostly just out of habit these days. Story 38. I cannot go into the pool, ocean, etc. without water shoes. I genuinely feel sick and nauseous from the sensation on my feet. It's disgusting. As a kid, if I didn't have them at camp, I resulted to just staying in one area and standing on a singular toe. Yes, I have OCD. Story 39. Smarties UK ones. Not the US sugar pills. Open the packet. Sort the colors. Start at the color with the less number of that color, then in order, but keep the green ones until the end regardless of how many of those there are. Story 40. I always put my parking brake on when I park. Doesn't matter if it's on flat ground or not. The driveway at my parents' house is very steep, so we always put the parking brake on. Now I do it out of habit. Okay, apparently this is super common, my bad. Story 41. When I was younger, I would walk to school. I would always try to beat a car to a certain random spot. For example, if I heard a car way behind me traveling my way, I would think, make it to the oak tree before the car does. I would also try to do something and make it back to the microwave before it hits 0. Things like do a lap around the house or pour a glass of milk and make it back to touch the microwave before it goes off. I rarely do these things now, but when the thought goes through my head, I'll give a shot for old time's sake. Story 42. I always eat in front of the TV, and I never, ever start until I'm sat down comfortable, have a drink to hand and any condiments I need, and then the show can start. Nothing fun can start until all the boring stuff, cleaning up, washing my hair, all that stuff has been done. Always work through lunch, color is everything. Story 43. If I'm walking into a bathroom and I hear another stall opening, I'll run into a stall before they come out. I've been doing it since I was like 4, and I have no clue why the idea of someone seeing me in the bathroom freaks me out. If they're already out of the stall, I'm totally chill, or if they follow me into the room. But if they're behind the door and suddenly open it, I gotta zoom. Story 44. This may seem obvious, but I always try to be there for someone's birthday event, even if it's not expected, even if you're not that close. It's a day when being absent might not be noticed, but being present can mean so much, learned from experience. Story 45. Sneeze as loud as I can every time. A friend and I made a deal back in primary school to do it. I didn't know why. Kids are weird and I have never not done it since. Drives my boyfriend insane. I must ask that friend if she even remembers it or if I've been doing it alone for all these years. I also have no idea how people sneeze really quietly. I just can't seem to fathom going about it differently than I do. Story 46. I write numbers like this instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't remember why I write numbers like this because I've been doing it since I was a first grader. Story 47. I made up a secret code that I could tell myself to prove my identity to my younger self in a time travel situation. I periodically think about that code as if somehow I might actually need it. Story 48. If I'm leaving a room doing things around the house, I always bring my drink back to the kitchen. Also, if I'm leaving the room for any amount of time longer than a few minutes, I will put anything breakable away, computer, instruments, etc. I grew up in a very packed and busy house, and if you left anything out there was a great chance of it getting broken or a drink being spilled. There are no young children running around my house, and my roommate wouldn't go in my room, LMAO, so I guess there's really no reason to be that strict now, but I just cannot do it. Story 49. When I eat, depending on the food, I have to have a little bite of everything to enjoy the food combination of flavors in my mouth. I also have to finish the plate bowl with one last bite of everything, or it feels bland to me. Story 50. Never get a driver's license, so you never have to live somewhere you need a car. I have always lived in the most walkable places and prefer to keep it that way. Next month I'm moving above a subway station entrance that has 3 grocery stores downstairs, and is walking distance to both midtown and downtown. If I suddenly had to move to a suburb, I'd lose my mind. Story 51. Can't start a new book until I finish the book I'm reading. First off, I really didn't think this was a weird rule. It seemed like common sense. However, I've come to realize that most people do not follow this rule. How can you start another story when you haven't finished the last how? Story 52. When I was young, I read somewhere that Romans used to always enter leave a place starting with the right foot. I adapted it to stairs. Since then I have to get on my right foot when I finish using a set of stairs. To the point where I switch feet mid-walk if I sense I'm not landing on my right foot at arrival. Or remember which foot to begin with. If that's a stair I use often, my ex-husband would make fun of me to no end because of that. Story 53. I don't drink or smoke or do drugs. I am neither religious or ever had an addiction or health problems. I decided in my early 20s to never do either. Never liked the taste of alcohol, hate drunk people, and never cared for the smell of cigarettes. So why ever try one of those disgusting cancer sticks? And drugs, tried a couple, hated it. I am happy without it, but other people seem to be extremely bothered by it and try every given opportunity to convince me to consume. Why? No means no, Kevin. Story 54. I saw Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan and was freaked out when Khan put that weird bug in Chekhov's ear. To this day I have to sleep with the covers over my ear because of course a bug might crawl in it. Oh. Story 55. If I'm buying a gift for a child's birthday party, the gift is books, every single time. I don't care if they love reading or not. Every kid benefits from having more books available to them. This rule also applies to baby showers in addition to a gift from the registry. Story 56. When I'm done with a disposable wrapper, like a chip bag or candy wrapper, I always fold it over several times to make a long strip, and then tie it in a knot. I've convinced myself that I will have bad luck if I don't do this. Story 57. If I had to get up or stand while paying, I don't need to tip. I never understood, especially food pickup places. Yes, maybe the guys and ladies in the back packed my food. Why do I need to tip for a to-go order that was packed up? I paid for the food already, saving my money and time from ordering delivery. Story 58. I try never to lie. Lying would often be convenient, but even if it definitely is more than telling the truth, I try to avoid it the best I can, with very few people or situations being the exception. However, I lie a ton for comedic purpose, but then tell the truth after a good laugh or to cause it. Story 59. Not a weird law or rule, but a weird thing I do. When I was a kid I learned that sonar works by sending a ping out, it bouncing off of an object like the ocean floor, and the length of time it took to ping back to you determined the depth, so I started pinging out loud to myself to see how deep I could conceptualize the ocean. The longest I've gone is 3 years. It's fun for me, BC, I forget, and when I remember I'm like, ping, that's a deep ocean, LMAO. I'm not finished brushing my tongue until I nearly vomit into the sink. Story 60. Left shoe goes on before right shoe. Every single time. Every few years I'll make an honest effort to put the right shoe on first, but it just feels so wrong. After a few steps, I have to take my shoes off and put them on again in the correct order. I'm 55 years old. Story 61. Saving the best for last. When I eat, I'll eat some of everything throughout the meal, but my last bite has to be whatever I think is the best thing on my plate. Story 62. As a 9-year-old girl, mom made me have a pageboy bob, curled under. I hated it and swore I would never have my hair cut above my shoulders again. 50 years later I have kept that so far. Story 63. If he is on the sidewalk and in my way, I will say excuse me and possibly clear my throat. I know they can't understand me, but it seems like the right thing to do. Also makes me laugh when someone gives me weird looks. Story 64. I live in an old house with many defunct light switches. If I by mistake flick a switch that doesn't work, I must flip it back, just in case it actually did something somewhere. Like, I might just switched off Jerry Mouse's lighting for his sardine bedroom, you never know. Story 65. I'm not as strict with my rule since I've been medicated for ADHD, but for most of my life I couldn't start or end a task at a random time. It had to be a time that ends in 5 or 0. If it's a really big task, it might even move to 00 status on the hour. Oh no, I vagued out and it's 1002, guess I'm starting that task at 1100. This is generally only within my own home. Once I step out the door I am beholden to the rules and schedules of others, which is actually a nice little treat to give my brain a break. Story 66. My late mother told us as kids, if we didn't dry between our toes, we would get pneumonia. I still think this now, as I sit and dry between each one. Story 67. My rule is understand the physics before doing something. In 5th grade the concept of physics clicked for me. The fundamental forces of nature, how things move, behave, cause and effect in its most simplistic explanation. It's considering through start to finish what actions will cause, and then what happens after that, and so on. A side almost sister rule was what's a person's motivation. It's when I realized that my friends were doing things for ulterior motives. People are not what they seem on the outside. Story 68. If I don't want to do something, and I start counting to 3, I have to do that thing. This has all sorts of applications, like telling someone how I feel even though conflict is scary, or forcing myself to get out of the car to go into a job interview, or wipe a wound even though it's going to sting. I don't start counting unless I'm serious, but if I do, I always do that thing. It's sort of like my brain telling itself this is happening, and you have 3 seconds to get on board. Story 69. If I eat cereal with marshmallows, there must be a marshmallow in the last bite. Same for spaghetti with meatballs, must be a meatball in the final bite. Have to evenly distribute them so there's enough left for the last bite. Story 70. I don't tell people about something I'm really looking forward to until after it happens because I was disappointed by unreliable people and situations so much growing up. I'm also pathologically incapable of making long-term plans. Story 71. If you leave the living room you have lost all rights to the remote. If you give warning that you need a bathroom break you have 30 seconds. I think me and my brother made this rule because we fought so much about who got to watch what on TV. Story 72. I have a rule that absolutely any person asking for money on the street gets money provided I'm able to give it. I never want to be in a position where I'm willing to help one person but not another, or judging whether someone deserves it. You need money. Do I have money? You get money. Are some people going to use if for questionable? Yeah, probably, but more than likely someone's just going to get a sandwich. Story 73. I have to eat the thing I like the least on my plate first before I'm allowed to eat the stuff I like. Works for anything. I have to eat the brown M&Ms and the orange Starburst first before the good ones. I don't care what anyone says, different colored M&Ms taste different. Story 74. When walking on a sidewalk, I can't walk over the gap between each concrete tile, and if I step over it with one foot, the other foot must also step over the next gap, otherwise, it's not even, it makes absolutely no sense. Story 75. Calculating if you can promise. It's a saint thing this word for me. Promising something means no matter what he'll do it and only extreme circumstances can break it. I expect same in return, but I'm rather careful. A lot of people don't care anyway after such word. Story 76. Anything sweet dessert has to be eaten in the end. The least preferable relatively food gets eaten first. Not surprisingly I apply this to everything I do now. The not so interesting hard stuff gets done first. Story 77. Don't touch the glass. Open glass doors with the handles. Don't touch the glass display cases. Saw someone arm go through a glass door, but I think it's more of like, keep things clean. When you touch the glass, someone has to clean it. You could just not touch the glass. Story 78. If there were 2 commercials for the same brand during a commercial break, I would say point, as if I was keeping score. I still do the same today, but admittedly under my breath as to not weird people out. Story 79. Be honorable, keep your word, tell the truth. Not always easy, but I always wanted to be that person, and I am striving to be. I am in my 40s now. The exception to that rule is yes, your baby is so cute. Not all babies are objectively cute, but they are all cute to their mothers, as it should be. And thank you for the lovely dinner. Somebody tried hard, and it makes it lovely, even if it tastes like feet. No, I haven't tried. Story 80. Only drying my hair on the side of the towel with the tag label on the tag on the sheet. Goes by the foot of the bed, preferably not my corner. All pillowcases are zipped on the same side, using 2 pillowcases for each pillow. Only for the apartments I lived in every night before bed, making a clear path from bedroom to the door. I don't want to be tripping over shoes and stuff, in case we can't see anything. Must always wet the floor of the shower, before I can get in there. Story 81. I never have a mirror facing my bed out of irrational fear that there's going to be something in the reflection that isn't right. Logically I know this isn't going to happen, however I started doing it when I was a kid and it's become habitual. Story 82. I would lift my legs in a car while going over railroad tracks. As a little kid I thought having my feet down would cause the car to trip over the railroad tracks and then we would get stuck. Story 83. Horn must be honked when crossing state line or border. You have to let them know we are coming. With that, an instant lottery ticket must be purchased in each state you enter, every time you enter it.